This is the IPS morning deprogram for 6/13/2025, Friday the 13th. I think I might paint a Jason Voorhees today. Somebody was asking. I kind of have a routine with that, a tradition at this point. But the title, we do not live in a video game. We don't. You're not a video game character. You're not Super Mario. This is not a video game. This is not a simulation. Simulation theory is not a theory. At best, it's a hypothesis, but it's an unfalsifiable model, a metaphysical model that replaces God with simulation. And the problem with advancing anything as simulation or proof of simulation is you're stuck with the same problem asserting God's behind everything. You're still dealing with a premise that is unscientific, it's religious, it's spiritual. So you have to prove God before you can say God did this. You can say it, you can believe it, but you can't provide it as evidence. Same goes with the simulation thing. If you're going to say the sim made me do this, you got to first prove the existence of your sim. And if it's based on simulation theory, there isn't a theory. So you're at the starting point. You haven't even made any progress in that model. But what I want to point out is this. The mainstream view is that everything that we see on TV is essentially real unless debunked. That media is a window to the world that informs you. The alternative view, the truther view, is that mainstream is lying. But this additional information can fill in the blanks. And the mainstream is therefore liars. And the alternative are therefore truthers. Truthers, liars. Very easy to take a side. But there's a third category that has emerged, and that would be the off-world stage perspective, media skeptics. That would be us, who recognize the folly of MSM and what I term MSM plus, or alternative, because they're both in the same box. Both the mainstream and the alternative do not recognize the legitimacy of fakery. The truthers will say, oh, it's a false flag. People are dying. It's a dangerous world. Well, these events are all tantamount to atrocity propaganda that we're describing, whether it's terror attacks or shootings, mass casualty events. Yeah, these are, when they're nationally reported influence operations, nobody dies. That's not a real challenging statement there. I mean, we've been looking at this very closely, and all we've seen has been nothing but fakery. So false flag theory has been debunked. And here's what the difference is. The truthers have a model for reality. And their model is that mainstream is lying and that there are, in fact, operations going on, but they think these operations are just false flags, misidentified perps, but that they're still real atrocities. So we kind of got rid of that. And what I have been focusing on here is this. The entertainment media is synchronized with the news. Now, this is not a mystical proposition, but what truthers have done for 20 plus years is anytime they see a coincidental alignment between what's on the news and what's in the movies, they say, my mind is blown, I'm in a video game. Well, that's an L, that's a loss. That means that the media wizards have blown your mind to the point where you've lost touch with reality. You're quite literally saying you're skits. Oh, I have had a schizoid break from reality. Reality's fake and it's subjective, and I'm in a video game because the entertainment coincidentally keeps lining up with the news. Netflix keeps predicting reality. So that blows their minds, leaves them in this fugue state of, I'm in a simulation now, and I'm not in a simulation. Yet, I'm consistently noticing, and I'm not even talking about stuff from the far past. I'm talking recent or contemporary alignments. And this is consistent. I can list 50 right now if I wanted to. Like, if we want to have a debate with a synchro mystic, I would list 50 examples of real-time alignments between what's happening on the news today and what was on Netflix last night or today. Impossible alignments. Like the Roe v. Wade leak and the march, just as Game of Thrones releases House of the Dragon, where the queen is dying during childbirth. So we have these consistent alignments that show also a political utility behind the predictive and concurrent programming that reinforces the fake news. So my point is this: if predictive programming is real, and it's not an if, there are some people who are still stuck on that. It's a mainstream take to say it's merely coincidence. If you're saying, oh, this is just like, we're looking at 20 years plus. The last 20 years of suspected fake news events being attended by mirrors in entertainment are mere coincidences. That's the mainstream take. The other take on it is that the same entity behind fake news events is also influencing entertainment. That's not a challenging proposition. We're saying that the propaganda creates a media ecosystem, and it doesn't refrain from using entertainment and celebrities as propaganda vectors. So we're talking about propaganda, not a metaphysical model. This is where they get people. They're using propaganda war, psychological warfare against us, worldview warfare, and the people who notice it are misled into thinking that nothing is real. They're misled into thinking that they're crazy, we're in a simulation. There is no evidence for a simulation. The simulation theory is not a theory. But what I'm pointing out here is that we have consistently noted alignment between entertainment propaganda and fake news. If you can't explain that without invoking simulation, then you're a victim of mind control. Like the TV drove you mad. I saw so many things on the TV that seemingly aligned with what I saw in entertainment, therefore reality's fake. No, that's the wrong answer. But that has been the default answer for truthers for a long time. And we've been studying this phenomenon long enough to recognize that no, actually, there is a deliberate synchronization between entertainment and fake news. Again, not a challenging proposition here. The evidence speaks for itself. And now that we have enough evidence, we've been pointing this out for some time, if true, so let's just take a hypothetical. If you don't understand it, or you haven't researched it, so you don't know about it, entertain this as a hypothetical. If 9/11 was preceded by decades of what is termed predictive programming, then you could say that predictive programming is a predictor of fake news events. Am I right? I mean, isn't that what it does? It bolsters, it predicts, and it exists at the same time to reinforce this echo chamber around a particular set of narratives or ideas. So having established this as true, it is true that you can look at entertainment media as an indicator of what's going to happen in the fake news. So I'm not saying TV is a crystal ball and it tells you what's going to happen in reality. No, I'm saying TV is propaganda, and the propaganda will align with the agendas of the psyops of the day. And if you can't see that the psyops of the day connect to the entertainment, you're not paying attention. Or if somebody points out to you, hey, look, the psyops of the day perfectly align with Netflix. If your answer is to say, oh, I live in a video game, you've lost the plot. So if you think you're in a video game or you're in a simulation, that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of schizos in the world. There's a lot of mental illness. There's a lot of people who have lost touch with reality. The mainstream exists in a Truman Show. So if you live in a Truman Show, we could argue that you're not in touch with reality. You're somewhat subjectivist at this point. Nothing wrong with that, because we can coexist. Different religions offer different reality bubbles. But in particular, what I want to point out here is that the evidence for simulation theory is all bad evidence, and it ignores the more mundane truth that the propaganda is highly centralized in theme, in content, and it's all directed towards the fake news psyops. So what I'm pointing out here is that when you understand what media is, you can make predictions, as we frequently do, consistently do, as we have consistently done. And the point of it is this, and this is what conspiracy theorists haven't figured out. If you're in the MSM box, or alternative media box, then you don't know the point of it. Like, what's the point of this? And the general topic is, the answer is, they want your energy. They want your loosh, which is cool. I understand it's all about attention, but that's a non-answer. I have the answer. The answer is the simulated events, the fake news events, are events in what? In our history. Because news becomes history. Look at the last 30 years of accrued fake news and how these fake events have driven the mainstream cycles and narratives, and how we collectively look at the past. Because our worldview is essentially where we are right now and what led up to it. And our shared agreement of what led up to it is all coming from the fake news bent version of things. So we have a distorted collective consensus worldview bent by fake news, which creates what? Fake history. So we have witnessed, and we have been witnessing, and we're watching what I call the meta script, which is in fact history in the making. So history is being made in front of our eyes with fake news, psychological operations all the time. And it's bolstered by the entertainment that gives you depth, the entertainment that gives you context, narratives, and archetypes. So a few days ago, well actually last month, I saw the trailer for Thunderbolt, which has the blackout, the EMP, the nuke stuff. The villain, Valentina, looks just like Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard comes out 2 days ago and says, we're about to face nuclear annihilation. And I'm like, wait, she looks like this character from this movie, same white stripe down the hair, same threat being explained, the void weapon in the movie. And so I took that as yet another indicator that what they're doing here is they're offering a broader context for interpreting fake news. They're setting the stage. They're giving you the visuals, as we saw before 9/11. So this is happening now. So we've been talking about, with this stuff with LA riots and the stuff that corresponds to the movies. We're like, it looks like Seattle. It looks like the Space Needle EMP stuff is thrown out, but blackouts, nukes are on the horizon. And in the last 24 hours, it's been Israel bombing Iran talking about retaliation, America on the map for retaliation. So what I'm pointing out here is that the plot on the world stage develops concurrent with what they're inundating us with in the movies. One of the best performing movies of all time in the horror genre is Sinners. I went to go see it, and it was about these twins. It's about the racist clan. So it's this racist vampire movie, and it has twins as protagonists. And it brings up a lot of issues about America, the South, Jim Crow, systemic oppression, etc. Well, then we have the track meet where Austin Metcalf dies in the arms of his twin. In Sinners, the main character dies in his twin's arm. Well, one of the main characters, because there's twins. But in the Austin Metcalf scenario, it was framed as a racial thing. And then you had a PSYOP actor from January 6th who just got out of prison, Jake Lang, who goes down and confronts the father of Austin Metcalf and basically says, can we use your son as a white Trayvon Martin? Can we turn this into White Lives Matter? So my point of it is, we had the twins, we had the racial psyops unfolding in the wake of this popular movie. And that's the key point. To be considered programming, it has to reach a mass audience. So if a top performing horror movie of all time contains these messages, I think we can say it consists of predictive and or concurrent programming, reinforcement for psyops. And what were the psyops? Well, the stabbing, how we interpret the stabbing, Carmelo Anthony, and the money they're raising to support him. And then this is mirrored by Shiloh Hendricks and her racial slurs in the parking lot, and how this created a competition to raise money, each side raising money for their prospective hero and to show the other side, hey, look. So we had a proxy race war through Give, Send, Go, as people are offering their support to Shiloh versus Carmelo. Now, that happened against the backdrop of a movie that contained all the core elements of that drama. And this is a repeated thing. So the next top movie I just watched, Mountainhead. Mountainhead has a Musk character, unequivocally based on Musk. And it has the drama we saw unfold with Musk and Trump, how the attitude between these techno oligarchs and the government and their desire for more power, and how they don't care about how these generative AI can create chaos on the world stage. And this movie comes out, and in the background of the movie, America is burning. The world's at war because of the madness, because of all the memes, the radical ideology spread through the internet. And we look out right now, what's happening in the world. On Saturday, we have 1,800 protests against Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Against Musk and Trump. You know, there's no kings thing. Well, the movie is essentially about Musk and Trump, and specifically about the role of AI and far right-wing agitprop being spread and the effects that it has in the world, and how they're not going to mitigate it because they're putting profit over everything. But these are big themes that they're putting in the movies that were recorded years ago that happen to align with what's happening right now. Another example, Mickey 17. Mickey 17 had a Luigi-like shooter before Luigi existed on the world stage. That movie was recorded in 2022. Comes out in 2024. It has a Trump-esque character played by Mark Ruffalo giving a xenophobic speech like Trump did, talking about colonizing an all-white planet. He gets shot at by the Luigi character. The bullet grazes his cheek, so he's got blood on his cheek. Sound familiar? And then he demands the cameraman set up and record him posing with his bleeding cheek. Sound familiar? So explain to me, if you're a mainstreamer who doesn't notice, and it's not about believing in, if you don't notice or acknowledge concurrent programming, concurrent releases relating to the news, if you don't acknowledge this, explain to me how Mark Ruffalo's character not only survives an assassination attempt in a way analogous to Butler, but also poses for the cameras like Trump. It's a parody. But explain to me how this parody was recorded 2 years before the event. And if your explanation is, we live in a video game, I'm sorry, Super Mario, but that's not an answer. You can't claim to be a video game character when you're confronted with something like this that creates an immense contradiction. This contradiction has an explanation. The explanation is the pre-planned news is attended by pre-planned entertainment propaganda. The key here is pre-planned, written in advance. History's written in advance, acted out on the world stage. If you don't believe me, look at 2020 as a great example of this. Do you think they made up 2020 on the spot, the pandemic? Even though it was attended by decades of predictive programming with specificity, 311, Ground Zero, Seattle, Colony, or The Office, episode 3 of season 3, episode 11, where you have very specific release dates, very specific events that point to future fake ops. So again, fake ops, fake operations, simulations on the world stage are paralleled by what's in the entertainment. Palestine, Ohio, train derailment. Everyone's like, wow, this is like what just happened in what we recorded here last year on Netflix for White Noise. And people who were in the movie White Noise had to be evacuated from the quote real thing. So we have, again, we have hundreds of examples, not cherry-picked, let's fit this puzzle together, but I'm talking coordinated releases. So if you can't explain coordinated entertainment and video game and book releases that perfectly relate to world stage psyops, then you've lost the plot. Synchromysticism does not explain anything. Simulation theory is an intellectually weak argument that has no foundation in evidence. And everything that we're providing is evidence in favor of history being acted out on the world stage because it's planned in advance. That's the big conspiracy. The big conspiracy is the power elite exercise a worldview monopoly through total media control, which gives them control over history. Unless you're still stuck believing that history is real and organic, but if history is fake, and here's another one. Many of the people who believe in synchromysticism, who don't believe that man does predictive programming, will openly say history is fake. Well, if history is fake, who wrote it? And did not the same entities that brought us the fake history bring us the fake news? Are they not the same? Is it not the same thing? What is the difference? Tell me. What is the difference between news and history? I'll be waiting for a good distinction between the two to be made, because as far as I can tell, the news accumulates, and then it becomes history. Till says, wouldn't there's a fact that the script or reality be evidence for a simulation? No. Again, you have to prove a simulation before you can invoke it. You might as well say God's writing the news. And if you're going to say, and I'll address this, if you're going to say that the script is evidence of a simulation, then every example I have of media scripting, you, Till, must accept as evidence of your simulation creator. Like, hey, Tim, all these alignments between fake news and Netflix is evidence of my God, the simulation. And I'm not going to let you get away with taking my evidence of controlled media releases, propaganda releases, and use it to feed your simulation nonsense. So no, the answer is no. In fact, what you're invoking here is called the divine fallacy. I can't explain it. My mind is blown, therefore higher power. So no, the answer is no. Simulation theory, like Mandela effect, these are guardrails. These are misinformation lines planted to keep you from figuring out the truth. The truth of it is, our reality is scripted by man. But instead of you noticing that government is doing this, you're like, oh, it's not government, it's a higher power. Oh, it's not a man behind the curtain, it's that big, scary, glowing wizard face. So if you're going to fall for the Wizard of Oz's illusion, you're deceived. You're a self-professed video game character with no agency. You're mind controlled and reality's not real for you. Like, do you really want to be there? Do you want to be a subjectivist in a world of subjectivists with a false worldview? Do you want to be a madman in a Truman Show? I certainly don't. I'm not there. I'm not there with you. If you're confused, that's not something to be proud of. Don't put a badge on. Say, look at me, I'm confused because this stuff is mind-blowing. My mind is blown. If your mind is blown, it means you don't have the right answers. You haven't figured it out. But like, that's nothing to be proud of. I'm not confused. I document, I study, I observe, and I have arrived at answers. We have plenty of answers. And the concurrence, the events on the world stage that happen to relate to the news, the entertainment and the video games, like this media ecosystem can only be really observed if you look at it from a perspective of it being a model. The world stage is a model. Rebel Black says, simulation theory is bleeding into everything. Even targeted individuals are yelling that now. Well, simulation theory is gaslighting. Do you know what gaslighting is? Gaslighting is when you tell somebody, your perceptions are not adequate to understand reality. You must listen to this other source. You can't trust your own senses. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, none of it's real. Yeah, gaslighting is attacking your perceptions. And simulation theory is saying, well, yeah, of course, reality's fake because these things don't line up. But that's another trick here. The trick is this. They get you to think that if I can't figure out these alignments, these synchronizations between entertainment and news, reality must be fake. If the news is fake, reality's fake. Not true. If the news is fake, somebody's lying. It doesn't mean that reality, it means somebody's lying about reality. They're misrepresenting it. So really quick here, let's just talk about models. The worldview that you have, your internalized model, is the one informed by your experiences, by your perceptions, and as informed by what is broadcast to you through the screen. So what comes to the screen doesn't always align with the real world. It does in the tangible ways, but they add things that don't exist, like planet killer asteroids, false histories, false narratives, propaganda. So we have an augmented worldview these days. Our worldview is media augmented. The problem here is that what media presents to us is generally a lie. So we have a lie-enhanced reality. But the model they give us is not the real thing. And if you discredit the model, it doesn't mean the real thing's discredited. And that's the flaw in the thinking of the simulation theorists. They see that the news is fake or altered, manipulated, and so they lose the plot. They think the world stage is fake, so the world's fake. No, the map's not the territory. That's why I'm confident in saying that the only people who can claim to be objectivists are those who take the off-world stage perspective. Rebel Black says the government admitted Area 51 is misinformation and Hollywood followed. Yeah, exactly. Look, I have a great example of this. The fact that UFO culture, which dominates all science fiction, it dominates all the video games, it dominates the public imagination. Anytime you get into science fiction, it's all basically government propaganda. Think about that. All of the science fiction related to aliens and Area 51 came from the Pentagon. Now think about how entertaining all these movies have been. All the best movies, the best entertainment is all being government propaganda. That's not a conspiracy theory. So if you don't think that the government takes a heavy-headed hand, like if you don't think that government takes an interest in your entertainment to correlate it to the psyops, then again, you've lost the plot. Ollie Goering says, do we laugh and point at normies that are panicking at nuclear war? Yeah, of course, I don't tell them. I'm not here to wake people up. I'm not here to shake up the box, because the box is essentially a closed informational system. They can't understand it. Like, there are people who recognize that Trump's ear wound was fake, but they don't have the ability to put it in a context where the story can make sense for them. They're like, well, that guy's dead, the shooter's dead, but Trump faked it. So why would you do it? Unless somebody's going to pay you to pull their head out of the box as a therapist, why would you do it? It'd be like, it'd almost be like trying to change somebody's religion. Because you're talking about an operating system. It's not a series of beliefs. You can't just tell somebody, hey, believe this and this and this, and then you'll be on the same sheet as us. No. You can give somebody a comprehensive list of all the fake news events. It will not, quote, wake them up. Because this is not about the right beliefs. It's about the rejection of beliefs that don't have enough information to support them. And it's about adopting the stance of the informed non-believer. But this requires a different operating system. So this is the model thing. The mainstream operating system is the news is real. Alternative operating system is alternative news is real. The new operating system needs to be mainstream and alternative are fake until proven real. And if they're not proven real, the best we can do is inform ourselves about the fakery. So the IPS think tank knows more about the fake events that we discredit than the believers know about these events that they believe in. So there's a fundamental distinction between believers and knowers. And if you're a knower, you have no business trying to affect the belief system of a believer, because they just get information from their source. So I wouldn't bother telling anybody. Let them suffer. Or let them be apathetic. I mean, I'm completely irreverent about it. How many LA riot crisis actors? Good question. I mean, there's places for public participation in marches, but when there's an event that gets the headlines, a mass shooting or something in particular that goes viral, there's always going to be fakery in these events. But I'm just bringing this up because what we have established here is this. This is groundbreaking. History is provably being written in advance. We can call the script the meta script. And the meta script is not just the fake news, but it's also what gets you to believe it. And that's inclusive of all the different forms of entertainment and every propaganda vector out there that feeds into this. And it is a consistent picture that is being painted day after day. And every day that goes by is another day in the history books. And if you want to see how right this is, look at the last 20 years of history, pick up a history book, and note how every reported event is going to be exactly what the mainstream said. Leonard says, what are your thoughts on the Iran script? Well, last week we were talking about upcoming events and the situation of the nuke being brought up. And so then it's on time. We were just talking about Thunderbolts and Valentina the villainess and the blackout weapon, the Void, and how she looks exactly like our national security director. Same hair, same white skunk stripe in the hair. I'm like, what are the odds? And so Tulsi Gabbard comes out and she says, we're at the brink of nuclear annihilation. And I'm like, wait a minute, is Thunderbolts coming to life right now? Are we coming towards a blackout EMP situation? And after that, what do we have? Now the entire conversation is about the destruction of nuclear facilities in Iran. Is the Indian plane crash a hoax? Well, a question is it fakeable? Yes. I don't know if it's real. I don't have enough information to know that it's real. Do I know that it's fake? It's fakeable. I need more information. But what I can say is there was one survivor, seat 11A. And then I also saw other footage where people are showing off some holy book that survived. So it has a lot of hallmarks of being a PR stunt, a psyop. What would it take to fake such a thing? A video clip? Penguinati says, if I was Illuminati, I would interpret your professed unenthusiasm to wake sleepers as signaling, please don't kill me. I want to... No, you can't awaken them. You can't. The human ego is a barrier against anything outside of its parameters. You cannot wake people up. I don't know why anybody would try. I mean, I'm constantly barraged by religious people. I mean, I've had Mormons try to wake me up. I've had Scientologists try to wake me up. I've had Christians try to wake me up. No, I'm impervious to it. I am not going to include that into my worldview. We have boundaries, and the mainstream box has boundaries, and you can only think yourself out of it. It's like you can't wake somebody up to higher mathematics. They have to go through the textbooks and learn math step by step progressively to get to the point where they can do these computations on their own. You can't wake people up to the meta script concept here if they still fall under the illusion that the news is telling the truth, which is hilarious. So no, you can't wake people up. The only thing we can do is reach the people who have figured out media fakery and then explain to them, we know the answer. We know why they fake the news. They fake the news because they write history. And if that answer eludes them and they want to stick with the idea that they're a video game character in a simulation, then there's no helping them. They've lost the plot. Obrique says, why do they fake plane crashes? Lots of reasons. Depends on the event. For the last couple of years, they've been doing a lot of Boeing stuff, largely to attack Boeing as a paragon of crony capitalism, a way to attack Trump for deregulation. All right, we'll be back later. I rarely go live for more than 30 minutes before YouTube cuts me off. But just to be clear, we're not in a simulation. We're not in a video game. We know why they fake news, and we know why there's contemporaneous programming in all of the entertainment. It's because they write history in advance. It's called the meta script.